The possibility of A.J. Brown being traded is no longer just background noise around the league. It is a real storyline that has caught serious attention, and it directly involves the Philadelphia Eagles. According to reports, the New England Patriots have explored trade talks involving Brown, but what is truly fascinating here is how those conversations have unfolded behind the scenes. The Patriots are interested, that much is clear. They are actively looking to upgrade the weapons around their young quarterback Drake May, and they see Brown as the type of true number one receiver they have been missing for years. But the sticking point, Philadelphia's asking price. Sources indicate that New England views the Eagles' demands as unserious. That word stands out. It tells you immediately that Philadelphia is not positioning itself as a team desperate to move on from its Pro Bowl wide receiver. If anything, it suggests leverage. It suggests confidence. It suggests that if another team wants A.J. Brown, they are going to have to pay significantly. Now let's break down why Brown is even part of these discussions. He has been one of the most productive receivers in the NFL since entering the league as a second-round pick. He started his career under Mike Vrabel in Tennessee and quickly established himself as a physical, dominant target. Since then, whether with the Titans or the Eagles, he has consistently produced at an elite level. 6 of his 7 NFL seasons have ended with over 1,000 receiving yards. That kind of consistency is rare. That kind of reliability changes offenses. For the Patriots, the logic is obvious. They want to surround Drake May with proven talent. Brown would immediately become the focal point of their passing game. He would command double teams. He would create opportunities for everyone else. And in a receiver room that currently has 8 players under contract but faces uncertainty, especially with Stefon Diggs' situation due to contract questions and ongoing legal issues, adding a stable, dominant presence like Brown would be transformative. But here's where this gets complicated for Philadelphia. There is a major financial component tied to any potential move. If the Eagles were to trade Brown before June 2nd, the deal would result in $43.5 million in dead cap space. That is a massive number. That kind of cap hit does not just sting, and it reshapes your offseason. It limits flexibility. It affects how you approach free agency, extensions, and roster building. From a financial standpoint alone, it makes very little sense for the Eagles to rush into anything before that date. After June 2nd, however, the contract becomes more tradable from Philadelphia's perspective. The cap implications would be more manageable. That timeline matters. It means that even if conversations are happening now, any real traction could be tied to the calendar. And this is where the chess match begins. New England may not want to wait. If they feel urgency to support Drake May immediately, they could pivot to other options rather than sit on their hands until June. Meanwhile, the Eagles have zero obligation to lower their price. Brown is under contract. He is productive. He is central to the identity of the offense. The team holds control here. There is also speculation around what kind of return Philadelphia might expect. Some league sources believe that if Brown were moved, the compensation could exceed what Seattle received when they traded DK Metcalf and a 6th-round pick to Pittsburgh last year for a 2nd-round pick at 52nd overall and a 7th-round selection. If that is the baseline comparison, then the Eagles likely see Brown as commanding even more value than that, and based on his production, you can understand why. So what does all of this mean for Eagles fans? It means the front office is operating from a position of strength. It means they are not simply entertaining lowball offers. It means that unless a team steps forward with a serious package, one that matches Brown's production and value, Philadelphia has every reason to keep its star receiver and continue building around him. At the same time, the mere existence of these conversations raises questions about long-term planning. Is this purely exploratory? Is it leverage? Is it contingency planning for future cap management? Or is there a real openness to reshaping part of the offensive core if the price is right? This is not a minor rumor. This is a scenario that, depending on how it unfolds, could redefine the trajectory of multiple franchises. And now I want to hear from you. If you're the Eagles' decision maker and a team finally meets a massive asking price for AJ Brown, do you pull the trigger and reset part of the roster? Or do you shut the door completely and double down on keeping your elite weapon in Philadelphia? If you decide to shut the door completely, you are sending a very strong message to the rest of the league. You are telling everyone that AJ Brown is not a movable asset unless someone overwhelms you with an offer that reshapes your future. And from a pure football perspective, that stance makes sense. Brown is not just another productive receiver, he is the tone setter on the outside. He is the physical presence defenses have to account for every single snap. When you look at his track record, now 6 1,000-yard seasons in 7 years, you are looking at consistency that very few players at his position can match. Keeping him means continuity. It means stability for the quarterback. It means preserving the identity of an offense that has relied heavily on his ability to win one-on-one matchups and stretch the field. There is also something to be said about what it communicates inside the locker room. Moving a player of Brown's caliber is not just a roster decision, it is a cultural statement. It tells veterans and younger players alike how the organization values elite production. But let's examine the other side, honestly. If a team comes in with an offer that is significantly stronger than the DK Metcalf comparison, something that includes premium draft capital and perhaps additional assets, then you are talking about a different conversation. Draft picks represent flexibility. They represent cheap, controllable talent. They represent the ability to reset contracts and balance the salary cap in future seasons. If the Eagles believe they can replace production collectively while strengthening multiple areas of the roster, that becomes a strategic decision rather than an emotional one. The financial timeline still looms large. The June 2nd factor cannot be ignored. Before that date, the $43.5 million dead cap hit makes a trade extremely difficult to justify. After that date, the situation becomes more realistic from a cap management standpoint. That calendar pressure creates tension between teams interested now and a front office that may prefer patience. If New England or any other team wants Brown, they may have to decide whether they are willing to wait until the contract becomes more tradable or pivot to other options. And that is where leverage truly sits with Philadelphia. They are not in a position of desperation. Brown is under contract. He is productive. There is no public demand forcing their hand. When another team reportedly views your asking price as unserious, it often means you are setting it high intentionally. That can serve two purposes. Either you discourage offers you never wanted in the first place, or you make it clear that only a franchise-altering proposal will get your attention. From a roster-building standpoint, the Eagles must weigh immediate competitive strength against long-term asset accumulation. Keeping Brown maximizes your offensive ceiling right now. Trading him for a massive haul could provide depth and sustainability across multiple seasons. Both paths have logic. Both carry risk. What makes this situation even more intriguing is the uncertainty on the Patriots' side. Their wide receiver room is already in flux. While they have 8 players under contract, their most productive wideout in 2025, Stephon Diggs, faces an uncertain future due to contract complications and ongoing legal issues. That instability increases New England's urgency. Urgency often drives aggressive offers, but only to a point. If they truly believe the Eagles' demands are beyond reasonable, they may simply walk away. And if they walk away, that silence itself becomes telling. It reinforces that Philadelphia never truly felt compelled to move Brown in the first place. So now the question shifts slightly. This is not only about whether the Eagles should trade A.J. Brown, it is about what kind of organizational philosophy they want to lean into. Do they double down on proven elite talent and push forward with continuity? Or do they capitalize on peak trade value and trust their scouting and development system to reload? These are franchise-defining decisions. They do not just shape one season. They shape perception, flexibility, and long-term competitiveness. Now I want you to do more than just comment. I want you to engage with this seriously. If you're building this team for sustained success, are you prioritizing the guaranteed production of a top-tier receiver? Or are you betting on a blockbuster return that could impact multiple positions? And the deeper you look at this, the more you realize this is not just about talent versus draft picks. It is about timing. It is about windows. It is about how the front office evaluates where this team truly stands right now. If the Eagles believe they are firmly in a competitive window, then moving A.J. Brown becomes exponentially harder to justify. You do not subtract elite production from a roster that expects to compete at a high level unless you are absolutely convinced the return accelerates your long-term outlook without significantly lowering your short-term ceiling. Brown is not a developmental player. He is proven. He is battle-tested. He has delivered year after year regardless of scheme or quarterback. At the same time, front offices are constantly thinking 2 and 3 years ahead. They are looking at cap projections. They are evaluating positional value. They are assessing how to maintain flexibility in a league that punishes teams who become too top-heavy financially. Even though the $43.5 million dead cap hit before June 2nd makes an immediate move unrealistic, the broader financial planning still factors into internal conversations. You cannot ignore long-term structure just because a player is productive in the present. There is also the psychology of trade rumors themselves. Once a name like A.J. Brown surfaces in credible discussions, it changes perception. It sparks league-wide interest. Other teams quietly monitor the situation. Even if the Patriots initiated early talks, that does not mean they are the only ones evaluating the possibility. Sometimes a high asking price is less about discouraging one team and more about signaling to the entire league what it would take. And let's not overlook leverage from the Eagles' side in another way. Patience. If another franchise feels urgency, whether because of quarterback development, instability at the position, or public pressure, patience becomes a weapon. Philadelphia does not have to rush. They can wait. They can listen. They can hold firm. That power dynamic matters. For fans, this creates tension because it forces you to confront two competing emotions. On one hand, you want stability. You want your elite playmakers locked in. You want to see continuity and dominance on Sundays. On the other hand, the idea of a massive trade package can be tempting. Multiple premium picks, roster flexibility, the opportunity to reshape depth across the board. It is not a simple yes or no debate. What makes this situation so compelling is that both outcomes could be defensible. Keeping Brown reinforces identity and immediate competitiveness. Trading him, but only for a truly overwhelming offer, and could represent strategic foresight. And that brings us to the real heart of this story. Control. The Eagles control the timeline. They control the price. They control the decision. Reports may describe negotiations as stalled or demands as unserious, but none of that forces action. The organization ultimately decides whether this becomes a footnote of off-season speculation or a franchise-altering move. If June passes and there is still no movement, that silence could speak louder than any headline. It would suggest that the Eagles front office was never operating from a position of urgency. It would reinforce the idea that the reported unserious asking price was not posturing. It was a boundary, a declaration that unless someone meets an extremely high threshold, A.J. Brown remains untouchable. But here's where it becomes even more interesting. Even if no trade happens, the fact that discussions occurred tells us something important about how front offices operate. They explore everything. They test the market, they gauge value. It does not automatically mean they are shopping a player aggressively. Sometimes it means they are measuring perception. Sometimes it means they are preparing for contingencies years down the line. And sometimes it simply means another team called, and you always answer the phone. For the Eagles, answering that phone does not weaken them. It gives them information. It reveals how other franchises value their assets. If a team believes Brown could fetch a return that exceeds what Seattle received for DK Metcalf, a second-round pick at 52nd overall plus a 7th rounder, then that valuation becomes part of the internal calculus. It helps shape future negotiations.